Det er skarpt lyset. Kære alle sammen, på vegne af Institut for Kultur og Samfund og vores samarbejdspartner Folkeuniversitetet vil jeg gerne byde jer alle sammen rigtig hjertelig velkommen. Det er dejligt at se, så mange har fundet vej til Stakladen, også selv i det her gode vejr her i eftermiddag. I overensstemmelse med resten af arrangementet vil jeg nu slå over i engelsk. My name is Bjarke Porup, and as head of the School of Culture Society, and also on behalf of our partner, Folkeuniversitetet, it is my great pleasure to welcome you to this Futures lecture presenting Professor James Scott. With the Future series, we want to take cutting-edge research about culture and society out of the auditorium and into a less formal setting, demonstrating to a wider audience the necessity and relevance of research within our discipline. What we offer as researchers within the humanities and social sciences is not necessarily quantifiable results and so-called hard facts, often termed truths. We do offer something that may in many cases be equally, and in some cases even more important. We teach our students the ability to question truth, to contextualize and historicize them. And we teach them the ability to understand the cultural logics and truth created by humans themselves. This is of central importance because man-made truths also motivate actions that affect and change reality and ultimately define our future. Thus, we are here today to put truth into political, historical, and cultural perspective, to wonder about just societies and to question those that claim to be. And I'm sure that Professor Scott's lecture will be an excellent example of this. With the Futures series, we want to present intriguing insights into the many futures of the humanities. We will be introducing researchers who are front-runners, not only within the field of research, but also when it comes to interdisciplinary exchange and collaboration. These next couple of hours is dedicated to dialogue between different disciplines, as represented in the panel that you will present later on, but also between the perspectives of all of us here. So do feel free to join the conversation. We hope you will find the talk and the format inspiring, and we hope to see you all for our next Futures lecture in the fall. And now, I will give the word to Professor Nils Bubant, who will be our host today. We will be in the best of hands, I'm sure. So again, welcome to you all. Thank you.
Hello and good afternoon. My name is Nils Bubant, and I will be your host. In Danish, we say you are Toastmaster this afternoon. I'm really happy that you've chosen to stay indoors on this warm and lovely spring afternoon, but I think I can promise you that it is well worth your while. I think we have with us today one of the most creative and certainly one of the leading thinkers within social science, namely James C. Scott. I hope you have coffee in your cups and have found a good seat, because I will promise you, I think, that we will be today taking a high-altitude, breathtaking flight across 10,000 years of human history, along a path that I think will surprise you on occasion. For during this flight, the human body, agriculture, and our household animals such as cows, pigs, sheep, etc., will be tied to the modern state in one common and unexpected story that I think is worthy of, National Geographic or even a Hollywood movie. In the end, it should be apparent, for instance, why pigs and taxes are tied into each other's histories. I'll give you another example. It's a favorite of mine. It's probably not something that Jim will touch upon, but nevertheless, modern humans, such as ourselves, have relatively flat stomachs. I myself have an extended stomach from too many Easter lunches, and I see some extended stomachs out there, but compared to chimpanzees and gorillas, we have, us modern humans here, have relatively flat chests and flat stomachs. And this is related to cooking, to the invention of fire and the taming of fire and the invention of cooking. And cooking is a topic that Jim will talk about later on. It actually shows, I think, this example that our bodies, our very physiology is tied into the way it's been remodeled by the taming of fire. So the invention of fire and our very bodies are tied into one common history. And I think by the end of this talk, we'll also see how this trajectory leads on to the invention, the domination on a global scale of the modern state. Let me tell you what is going to happen in the next couple of hours before I introduce you to James Scott. The Futures lectures tonight and in the future will be a combined presentation and panel discussion followed by open debate. When I'm done talking here, James Scott will give his future lecture. After that, I'll present the two panelists, who are Heather Swanson and Jens Christian Svenning, and they will then engage with James Scott for around 20 minutes. When the time is ripe, I will then open up for questions from the floor and for open debate. Please do not be afraid to put up your hand and let your voice be heard. The topic is a huge one, 10,000 years of history that involves humans and other species. It's an immense topic, and none of us in this room is an expert on everything. So we all have, I think, something to contribute to this conversation, so please be part of this common learning experience if you want. At 7 p.m., the formal part of the arrangement will be over, but I gather there will be a small gift, so please stay around for this gift if you want it. And in relation to that gift, there will be the chance for about an hour to engage James Scott and each other in conversation if you want to. We end this whole affair at about 8 p.m. That is a program. It will be an adventure. And I can think of no one better suited to take us on this adventure than James Scott. James Scott is the Sterling Professor of Political Science at Yale University, where he is the Director of Agrarian Studies Program, a world-renowned center for cultural research. He's also the founder of the influential Journal of Peasant Studies and has for a lifetime contributed fundamentally to the rethinking of the relationship between state and morality, between power and resistance, and between environment and politics. Trained in political science, his work has had wide influence across a range of disciplines, and if, as I see some of you have studied anthropology, archaeology, sociology, history, science of religion, political science, development or agriculture, you're likely to be acquainted with his work. Jim, as he's also called, I hope that is okay, James, I call you Jim, is an incredibly prolific writer and has 16 books, I think now even 17, and countless articles under his belt. He has for many years been amongst the world's leading researchers on Southeast Asia, and I think it is fair to say that he founded an entirely new direction in Asian and agricultural studies with his book, The Moral Economy of the Peasant from 1976. This is a book that has been translated into every major language, including 5 Asian languages. His later books, Weapons of the Weak from 1985 and Seeing Like a State from 1998, extended the thinking of Michel Foucault into an analysis of the relationship between states and those of us, and that includes everyone here in this room, who are governed by states. In one of his later books, The Art of Not Being Governed, he took on then that other part of the global population, those not governed by states. It is from 19 from 2009 and won the Bernard Swartz Prize for the best book on Asia, and is an analysis of the way in which certain crops such as maize, cassava, and corn, for instance, have allowed swidden farmers in Asia and elsewhere to escape the clutches of the state for centuries. Perhaps, so the book provocatively argues, swidden farmers stick to these crops because the crops allow them to escape from the state. Swidden farming, svedjebrug på dansk, which is the custom of felling forest, burning it, and then tilling the soil for a while and then moving on to a new location, may in other words be a deliberate political choice, not an old-fashioned form of farming, an evolutionary stage or a natural fact. If swidden farming is a deliberate political choice of escaping states when they become just too much, that leaves the rest of us in this room, the history of us and how we came to be entangled with states and with the animals that come with states, namely the kind of animals and crops that are harder to move, those crops that you cannot escape with. That would be barley, wheat, pigs, cows. The udders of the modern cow is simply too big to allow it to walk for a long distance, and high-yielding barley and wheat and rice have to grow on fields that one cannot pack up in a backpack and take away. It is exactly the relationship between the modern state and these hard-to-move crops and animals that Jim's latest research addresses. And this research will also be the topic of the talk today. The talk is entitled The Domestication of Fire, Animals, Grains, and Us. I did a little focus group. I tried it with my partner, and she didn't know what domestication meant, so I take the liberty of translating it into Danish so as to make sure that you know what we're talking about. It could be something like Tæmningens historie, tæmningen af ilden, husdyrene, afgrøderne og os selv. The title suggests that the taming of animals and crops also entail the taming of us humans. One of the fascinating propositions you can listen out for in Jim's talk is this. Perhaps what happens in the cow and pig stables in the world and in this country may be closer linked to what happens in parliament and in society than we imagine. Denmark is a country whose national identity, whose democracy, political institutions are closely connected to agriculture and to household animals. The country slaughters 12 million pigs every year, twice as many pigs as there are human citizens. So I think the story that we're about to hear is a story that we in Denmark need to know about urgently, and perhaps more so than people in other places in the world, because we have so many pigs, amongst other things. And in that sense, Jim's lecture will be a true gift to all of us.